Hello and welcome to the Monday Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove and I'm joined by the man who's top of my table. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I feel like maybe you should put yourself top of your own table, but I'll take it anyway.
You're top of my podcast co-host table.
Okay. Cool.
Ranked by appearances.
Okay, that's it?
Yeah.
Cool, wow. A lot of caveats in there, but I'll take it anyway.
Hey, first place is first place.
It's like when my father-in-law tells me that I'm his favorite son-in-law, knowing that he only has the one.
I have a niece who I tell her she's my favourite niece.
Oh, yeah?
And she always stops for a second and goes, wait.
She celebrates momentarily and then remembers and then gets sad. Yep, I'm familiar with that.
All right, today, Taylor, we are going to be talking about the Premier League. It is 3 games old. We think 3 games is enough to see some patterns. So we're going to be pointing out some patterns in the Premier League. We're also going to be talking about Portland versus Seattle. They won 4-2 in Portland. And, of course, we'll do some Scouting Network reports. If you're looking for our show reviewing the US national team roster and the England roster, that's going to be a separate show published later tonight. So look for it Monday night. It'll definitely be there by Tuesday morning.
Right. And if you behind the curtain listeners, I came in this morning, Daryl was hard at work. There were newspapers everywhere. There were like red pieces of string connecting stuff. It's a very number 23 situation for Mr. Grove when it comes to detecting patterns.
Shall we start then?
Sure.
Why don't you go first, Tyler? Give me a team and a pattern you've spotted for this team in the Premier League.
I will go with Chelsea.
Okay, what's the pattern?
Leaders on BBC Match of the Day, which helped me to come to my conclusion that N'Golo Kante brings the stability Chelsea have needed and wanted.
Tell me all about that.
So if you remember last season, part of the problem that we thought Chelsea were having is that Cesc Fabregas was starting as one of those holding midfielders but drifted forward. And so Jose Mourinho, when he was in charge, tried to change things around to make it so that like Nemanja Matic had more cover. But basically they didn't have a strong defensive midfielder aside from Nemanja Matic, and he was tired from the season before. It seems like this year they still have Matic. Now they have N'Golo Kante. He did so much good work this weekend and so much good work in the past 3 weeks that it seems like his kind of defensive positioning and stability and work rate has allowed for everyone else to do all the attack they want to do. And Eden Hazard hasn't had to do too much defensive work, and you've seen the benefits of that for Chelsea.
Didn't the first goal for Chelsea against Burnley, I think they played this weekend, didn't it start with Conte winning the ball in midfield? And then he launches a Chelsea attack, and then Hazard scores. Right, that seems like the classic Chelsea goal at the moment. Yeah,
and then again, I think it was Ruud Gullit did a good job of pointing out that it was like nice and simple possession from N'Golo Kante. And that's what you need from him to allow everyone else to do the things they want to do.
Yeah.
And in watching this game, I did note that like, wow, Hazard and Oscar and Willian all look so good. And I was kind of putting it all on them without seeing the kind of unsung hero doing that work to allow them to do what they wanted.
So Kante and Matic are like the foundation to the very fancy house that is Willian, Oscar, and Hazard, and then Diego Costa up front.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people heading into the season with their like season previews of where people are going to finish picked Chelsea to finish outside the top 4, thinking that they had so much rebuilding work to do that they wouldn't make it. Antonio Conte seems to have figured out how to use both Conte and Chelsea as a whole. They seem like they're going to be in there from start to finish.
Yeah, I think so. Didn't I also predict that Chelsea would have the best protected back 4 in England, thanks to the Matic and Conte sort of double defensive shield?
You may well have, and you may well be correct.
I'm just pointing that out because that's my one prediction that I think is coming true. A Chelsea pattern that didn't come true this weekend, but has been true for the past 2 weeks. Diego Costa should have been sent off, then scores the winner. If that had happened a 3rd week in a row, I think we might have had to call the authorities.
He did have a moment, he missed a fairly point-blank opportunity.
And to elbow someone in the face?
And then it's a shot that's saved, or maybe he hits wide. And it looks from the wide angle as though he's blowing his nose into the 6-yard box as soon as he misses the chance. And then I think when it cuts to him close up, it looks like he's just like wiping his face off with his shirt. But it at first very much looks like he gets angry and immediately is like, I'm going to rile them up by blowing my nose into their own box. So he definitely still has those moments that make you think, what's he doing there?
So it's all looking good for Chelsea. How about I give you my Liverpool pattern?
Sure.
I have noticed Liverpool are consistently inconsistent, and it's kind of like last season. So they opened with a win. They followed a win against Arsenal. They followed it up with a defeat to Burnley. And this weekend they tied with Tottenham, despite having the better of the chances, I believe. They were foiled by multiple Michel Vorm slide tackles, inside and outside the box. Well done to Michel Vorm.
But, poor finishing from Coutinho. Maybe missed opportunities from Firmino and the worst haircut in the Premier League. So it's surprising because that's a team that I thought really might challenge for the top four. Seemed like they'd kind of finally gotten the pieces they needed to really become a Klopp team. Mm-hmm. And it's still some of the same problems that we've seen in years past, creeping up and popping up in random moments.
Yeah, we really thought this would be like full Klopp from the start. And Mane's looked impressive, for example. But the thing that really struck me is Liverpool don't look like a team with a plan B, right? They have the gegenpressing and it looks mostly effective. But when you go up against Burnley and they're going to sit back and defend, and they're going to stop you passing out of the back, then you're in trouble. Then you need a plan B. Maybe you needed a Christian Benteke on the bench to just aim long balls at again in desperate situations.
Maybe, but I think that was not something they ever considered, was the idea of having Christian Benteke as that backup option.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like something Klopp wants to do. Is like, oh, there's 10 minutes left, change everything, and now let's just lump balls out of the box and see what he can do. So it seems like their plan B is just going to be more of the same, but more aggressive.
That's not a plan B, is it? That's
no,
just
it's
plan
not.
A, repeat,
exactly.
Right? And that's why
it's plan A on steroids, yeah.
Won one, lost one, drawn one. I also see problems with this Liverpool team, right? A lot of people pointed out the Alberto Moreno problem, the left back. He's been replaced by James Milner, James Milner, and still Milner was the guy that got beat down the wing for the cross to come in for Spurs to score the equaliser this weekend. I'm starting to think it's not necessarily the player's fault, it's more the position's fault. Because Klopp asks a lot of his left-backs in terms of getting forward.
Wasn't that your theory from a couple weeks ago when everybody was really on the why is Moreno still playing bandwagon?
Yes.
That you were like, well, it's kind of who he is as a player. It's why he's in there.
And we didn't really get too deep into it on the show. And I know it's going to be hard to picture, but it's 2 weeks back. But against Arsenal, he wins the ball off Bellerin and then charges forward, which is part of the Liverpool Klopp counter-attacking thing. And the reason he's not in position to defend is because he's done that thing of charging forward, which he was supposed to do.
Right. Yeah. And that's the frustrating aspect of that Klopp system, is that if everybody does what they're supposed to do, but one thing breaks down, it can lead to a lot of people looking like they're very careless and stupid for like, why are you 30 yards out of position? Well, I didn't expect our midfielder who goes 56 to 57 passing to misplace that one pass at that one moment that leads to that one opportunity.
And it makes me think that Liverpool are going to be consistently inconsistent until they have all the pieces in place at the very, very top level. And having, as much as I love James Milner, genuinely, I think having him as your standing left back, I don't see it working for the whole season. Roberto Firmino, having him as your star striker, I can see Coutinho as top level, right? I think Mane is top level, especially for what Klopp wants. I'm not sure Firmino is up to the level of, say, Lewandowski, like the striker that Klopp worked with in the past. And I wonder if you don't have all the absolute best pieces in place, that this system isn't going to work consistently enough to challenge for a title.
Fair. I think the maybe one disclaimer we should add, though, is that this is 3 weeks into the season, and in those 3 weeks it's been Arsenal, who are, a decent team. Then you've got Burnley coming up. Second week of the season, they're going to obviously sit back. They're going to obviously be defensive. And then you've got Tottenham away, doing a very high-pressure system as well.
That's a good sampling of the Premier League, though.
True, but you've met some very strong opposition, whereas, say, Chelsea and Manchester United haven't had that, haven't had those big opponents yet.
Yeah.
And so you wonder maybe if, we talked about, I think you said it off air when earlier when we were like, Eden Hazard doesn't have to track back at all. That's what the Match of the Day guys were saying. And I think your response was yet. He doesn't have to track back yet.
That's true, yeah. He'll have to do some extra work when Chelsea plays someone a bit more threatening.
Right.
You got any more patterns for me you've noticed, Taylor?
Sure, well, I guess since I've already mentioned them, I have that Manchester United look like the Manchester United of old. And I don't just mean...
because they scored a late winner against Hull City?
They scored
from
late.
From a youth team product?
Mike Phelan, former Fergie assistant, now I think interim head coach at Hull City, was asked about it after the match, asked about how it felt to concede in Fergie time. And he said, well, Fergie time's 6 minutes. We only got 4 minutes in this game. But I think it was...
He said and then punched a wall.
Yeah, right. But it was, 92nd minute? And then it was Marcus Rashford, who's a young forward coming in the latter stages of the game and creating something. And then it's Wayne Rooney looking a little bit rejuvenated. It's the players looking a bit more like they're enjoying it as opposed to seasons past.
Yeah.
And I think, again, with the note that I'm a Manchester United fan, I watched that goal many times. And the way that entire team reacts and that they all run to the fans. And even like you have Rashford jump in there and then you have Pogba. And you're like, oh, Pogba just signed. But he's in the academy. He's been there before. So it just changes that approach to things a little bit.
And Man United get their big test the weekend after the international break.
Yes.
It is Manchester United hosting against Man City.
So.
I actually don't know which way around. We'll know by the time we preview that game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Manchester derby is coming. That's going to be huge. But I think, it's safe to say Manchester United are back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I think you can say that not only are they back, but they've got players doing things that they weren't comfortable doing before. You got Marouane Fellaini doing the defensive work, but not just on the field. Because if you've, I don't know if you saw this story, but while Man United were celebrating with the fans,
I saw the story. I haven't seen the video.
So he noticed that like one of the women who was in the front row was basically being crushed because everybody had run forward to celebrate, and he helped like the stewards pull her out and get her out of the crush. And then went back to celebrating. So yeah,
that's one of the weird things. I know we've talked about this a little bit before, but one of the weird things for the season is Fellaini's willingness and seeming ability to do the defensive midfield role.
Yeah, I think it sounds like basically it's the first time in a while that he has really understood what he was supposed to be doing. It sounds like David Moyes brought him in and was like, oh, we're going to try the Everton thing, but wait, that won't really work. We're going to change around a little bit.
Hasn't it been like, okay, this week you play right wing, this week you're centre forward, now you're an attacking midfielder? Yeah, at least it's been the same position every week. That's a pattern, right? Fellaini playing the same position every week.
And even Van Gaal, who like came in, and there were immediately rumors linking him with moves away. And there was, I think, the prevailing theory is that he was going to be sold. Fellaini was going to be sold to, I think, Napoli, and then it was like had a sprained ankle, and they're like, oh, we don't need a guy with a sprained ankle, so no, thank you. Whereas
that was never a Mourinho approved rumor, was it? That was just
no, that was Van Gaal.
Rumor.
That was Van Gaal.
Oh, I see.
It was like no. Mourinho, his quote was that he said to Fellaini, like on day one, "Don't listen to the papers. I have plans. I have plans for you." So it was like, so then all these rumors came out, and I think
Fellaini say transfer plans or playing plans.
Exactly. What's that now? Yeah, and so I think it's just a little more clarity, and it seems like it's a little more positivity there than there has been in years past.
And like, I know some people hate Manchester United viscerally. I'm someone who's kind of neutral on them, but just enjoys it when they're sort of in full flow. I'm glad to see them back because I think it's exciting to have a Premier League with a Manchester United in it, especially when there are so many other great teams. And I've done a little bit of a sneaky schedule looking. It is Manchester United hosting Saturday after next, 7:30 in the morning Eastern kickoff against Manchester City.
And I want to follow up. Well, you've done that sneaky reporting. I have done some sneaky Gmail scrolling to find an email from John with the subject line, "Not a Man U fan." And I was like, oh, this is going to be about how Taylor always talks about Manchester United. And he said, Rooney to Rashford in extra time was inconceivable. I'm not even a Man U fan, but it's a story that can't be ignored. Jose plays youth. Rashford is the next Galactico. So even when you've got that, it's an exciting time. Speaking
of Manchester teams, one of the patterns I have is Manchester City Football Club under Pep Guardiola has positional fluidity. So we already talked in the past about Kolarov starting the season at centre-back. We've talked about the actual fullbacks, Sanya, Zabaleta, Kolarov when he plays there, and Clichy drifting into like central midfield, which is a very Guardiola thing, right? If Guardiola was a filmmaker, that would be like his signature shot. You know what I mean? Like how Spike Lee puts someone on the dolly, Guardiola puts fullbacks into central midfield. This week, in the 3-1 win over West Ham, we saw John Stones getting to wander into midfield. So this was pointed out on NBC. I think the two Robbies spotted it. The first goal City scored, it was the Sterling goal against West Ham. Stones is sort of coming back, I think, from attacking a corner. And instead of going all the way to centre-back and waiting for Fernandinho to come and play midfield, he just stays in central midfield and gets involved in the build-up play.
And this is the issue I would take with that is you make it sound as though it's like, oh, he just stays there. But if you watch, he tells Fernandinho to cover for him. And then it is fluidity in the sense that like he's moved it around, but it's also familiarity with fluidity because it's still like you go here, I stay here, we do this is how this works, and then it works. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to stay here and then now we're out of position. It's an awareness of what everyone is supposed to do in any given situation.
And I think it's all about pressing, and not pressing like Klopp or VCU Havoc pressing, but like pressing your attacking advantage. Because the time it takes for Stones to wander all the way back, Fernandinho to come forward, it's a missed opportunity, right? If you've already got people in those positions, Stones may as well do the central midfielder's job at least for a minute or two. And I noticed he did it later on in the game as well. And you know Stones loves to dribble around with the ball. Yeah. Better to have him getting his touches in midfield than at the back where it can get a little bit dangerous. Everton fans all agree.
Yeah. And I would say it also speaks to the comfort that I think some of the players already have playing under Pep Guardiola? Because I know this is not a comparable situation, but we saw the Richmond Kickers game this weekend
against Orlando B.
A player who's usually left back was playing center back, or it was playing central defensive midfield, right?
Braden Troyer, Richmond listeners will know.
And it was much more of a like, I got to sprint back and be in my defensive shape. I got to get back and do this. I got to be, and like it wasn't so much about like it's okay in this situation. I know what to do.
Yeah.
Whereas John Stones, it seemed like even though in that moment it was a different thing that he's used to doing, it still worked, and it still worked because people knew and had the kind of creative freedom to move around a bit.
And one of the other patterns under Mourinho is the absolute resurgence.
Under Guardiola.
Did I say Mourinho?
You
I'm
sure
sorry.
did.
Guardiola.
I got real confused for a second.
The absolute resurgence of Raheem Sterling.
Yeah.
So Sterling scored twice at the weekend. The first goal was nice. The third goal in the 92nd minute is a little bit of genius, right? It is a little bit of genius. He steps around the keeper. He's on the end line. James Collins is coming to close him down, thinks he's covered the near post. He leaves a gap about the size of a soccer ball. Right? That's probably all there is.
Yeah.
And from a weird angle, Sterling finds a way to very confidently but firmly side-foot it through that tiny gap.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and it
excellent croquet player, I believe Raheem Sterling would make.
It makes me wonder if
when we talking about college that plays croquet,
St. John's College in Annapolis,
he could go there.
There you go. Sure, except I think croquet requires a mallet and some other things.
So his foot, he just kick all the balls through.
I think that'd be a little bit painful.
All right, Raheem Sterling should stick to professional soccer.
There we are.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay, because actually I wanted to ask you more about your theories on Raheem Sterling, because this is a guy who we had big things planned for him, I guess. When he moved to Man City, we expected big things. It didn't quite work. A lot of people, I think maybe us included, thought he might be due with a move once Guardiola comes in. Instead, he seems to have become this very important figure for City.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas why that might be?
I don't. I feel like maybe there's less pressure on him now. There's so much else going on at Manchester City. I feel like it may be behind the scenes. Guardiola has said, "Hey, you're my guy." You know what I'm saying? He looks very freed and confident, and he's popped up on the right wing and the left wing, and always looked like ready to go at people. I looked at his stats. He had 9 attempted take-ons in this game. That's a confident player who's not too worried about losing the ball, right? Yeah. Only 3 of them were successful, but that's kind of okay. Those are Eden Hazard numbers, 9 attempted take-ons.
Am I right in saying that like he was better for Liverpool when Brendan Rodgers was just sort of like, yeah, do what you want, like kind of gave him that attacking freedom?
He was better for Liverpool. Well, it's kind of hard, right? Because he was better for Liverpool in that season when Suarez was there and Liverpool were just rolling teams over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As soon as he started agitating for a move is when he was not so good.
Right. But it makes me
maybe
wonder,
just a mental thing.
But it makes me wonder if he needs like a strong South American forward who's in form combined with a lot of like free-flowing attacking options without maybe much defensive responsibility. Not to say that he's not doing anything defensively, because I think his defensive numbers have been better than expected. But
you also don't have to do that much for Man City, right?
That's what it makes me wonder.
Because you possess him. Yeah.
And if he can just kind of stay in the attack and do attacking things, definitely going to help you build confidence versus like, oh wait, I'm supposed to be in this quadrant, in this square, at this time, doing this.
And it's more just, I think part of it's just the fact that he started every game. It's so much, it shows so much support from Guardiola that he then can't help but flourish. I really thought Nolito would replace him, but it's Jesus Navas who's sort of suffered for it, I guess. And Samir Nasri.
I feel like maybe there's just a chart of Englishmen that Pep Guardiola is allowed to like at Man City, and it's like there can only be 2 at a time, and right now it's John Stones and Raheem Sterling, which is why Joe Hart finds himself on the outside looking in.
It is not Joe Hart.
It certainly is not.
We had a question about Joe Hart, but we're going to ask it on the other Monday show.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right, any more patterns, Tyler? That was Man City.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and again, we'll see more about Man City when they play Manchester United next weekend. Can't hype that game enough.
I think the media will be doing the same, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. My final one relates to Tottenham, and I would just say that Tottenham at the moment are kind of under the radar. I think because you have so many other changes around this league, be they managerial or big names coming in, that Tottenham, who are, having signed Wanyama, having signed Janssen, are still kind of the same team they've been.
Yeah.
And so I think they're less exciting to talk about from like, oh, this crazy player's come in or this crazy thing is happening. It's much more like, yeah, Dele Alli's still there, and Akdar's still there, and this guy's still there, this guy's still there.
It's because they haven't had like a big money overhaul, or a change in coach, or it's just Wanyama and Janssen.
Yeah, and I think it and then it's easy to look at them and be like, oh, they're kind of underperforming, or they're not doing this, they're not doing that.
Are they unbeaten?
I believe so, yeah. And then, like, you still don't have Harry Kane scoring yet, but that's something that I think will happen. So I think it's just
traditional for August, right?
Yeah, right. And so I think it's just a situation in which maybe there'd be more spotlight on them if there hadn't been so much insanity this season. But because there has been, It's just sort of like, oh, yeah, Tottenham are being Tottenham right now. That's fine.
Didn't we hear from Secret Soccer Shop owner?
We did.
Who's a Spurs fan.
Mm-hmm.
Is that secret? I guess not now.
Not anymore, yeah.
He was not thrilled about the Wanyama-Dyer partnership because they're maybe too similar. Is that what he said? Mm-hmm. And he misses Dembele.
He wants that change of pace, is what he said. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with Kyle Walker's injury/illness, he came out of the game early this weekend. Eric Dyer went to right back and I think got the cross in for Spurs' equalising goal.
Rose?
I think so. So maybe there's a chance that Dyer now plays right back and you get the Dembele-Wanyama partnership going.
Yeah. But I think we're going to see in like October Spurs go on this run and everyone's like, oh, they started so poorly in the season. It's like, no, they didn't start poorly. Yeah. You guys just didn't pay attention to them.
And now maybe just Wanyama and Janssen is this extra bit of depth that they have. Right?
Exactly.
And we talked about different looks earlier for Liverpool. I think it does give Spurs a different look. If they want to go two strikers, that's what they can do. I think that's what they did this weekend. They dropped Dele Alli back to sort of holding midfield and they put Janssen alongside Harry Kane. So they can basically go 4-4-2 or something similar to that when they want to go more than one striker.
Exactly.
All right.
Any more points for you?
Not from Spurs.
Okay.
But I want to talk about Arsenal.
Let's do it.
I know we're going rivals to rivals, right? So Arsenal, the pattern is slow start, frustrated fans, turned it around. And it's like a microcosm of every Arsenal season, I feel like. Because it started with a defeat, then it was a tie that had some promise in it but no result. And then this past weekend was that big win over Watford with the return of Mesut Ozil to the starting lineup. And I think Arsenal have got going and now all looks kind of good for Arsene Wenger. But there's definitely a misstep at the start of the season where we trusted young players to get it done a little too much, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think could have made some signings faster given that he has then had to make signings.
Yeah. Mustafi is official now?
I still don't know, actually. He has made it official. He has said, like, on Instagram or Twitter that he is moving to Arsenal.
That's as close to official.
And that Mesut Ozil was in his ear saying very nice things about Arsenal in London.
Great signing, by the way. I'm a huge Mustafi fan. I'm
but it's a great signing. It's an obvious signing, though, I think. It's like, going into the season, like, okay, we've got these two center backs. Oh, wait, this guy's hurt. Okay, that guy's hurt. Like, you knew you had injury
Chambers
concerns.
Rob Holding, will that do?
Right, and then you have Callum Chambers in there, who then, once this Mustafi news starts coming through, they immediately loaned to Middlesbrough for the season. So then they're still getting rid of a center back, and it just seems like there's still sort of could have been better preparation even while Arsene Wenger was preparing. He was just preparing in a different way than I think people would have liked to see them get ready for the season.
I think he really put, as usual, this is an Arsenal pattern of the last 10 years, Wenger put a lot of faith in youth. He really thought Holding Chambers, that'll be fine against Liverpool. Yeah. He really thought Iwobi, Iwobi's in the Scouting Network, really good, exciting, promising player.
That's what he thought. He was like, he's in the TSS Scouting Network, we should get him in there.
It's the seal of approval. But I really thought okay, we won't have Mesut Ozil for the first couple of games because he's still coming back from the Euros. Iwobi will be fine. But Iwobi wasn't quite fine, right? He wasn't quite good enough to break down Liverpool. And in fact, he was to blame for one of those Liverpool goals, right? He didn't do his defensive job.
So do you think that Arsenal fans are justified in this frustration, or do you think it's one of those where things seem really bad at the beginning? I remember a few seasons ago, I forget when it was, I think 2011 maybe, the start of that season, that they lost a game and drew a game and everybody's like, this is it, he's got to go. And then they ended up, challenging for the title as they do.
I think it's one of those things where Arsenal fans definitely overreacted, right? There was a close-up of that one guy saying Wenger out, remember him? But then he's turned it around after only 2 games, right? Arsenal look ready to go, all the big players are back and there's new signings come in. But in those 2 games, they've dropped 5 points. So it could be that by the end of the season, you look at it and you're 5 points short and you sort of think, oh, that's where those 5 points went. Yeah. So fans are correct but also not correct, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense. And I think it's probably the frustration of being an Arsenal fan and a fan of any football team, I guess, is that you see things that need to be fixed, but obviously you are not in charge of fixing those things. So instead you just have to kind of sit there and be like, come on, please sign someone. Please sign. This isn't going to work. Oh, boy. Okay, I guess this is what we're doing. We're going with this. Let's see how it goes.
Do you have any other patterns from teams? I've got one more for you.
What was your Liverpool one? They're going to be consistently inconsistent. Then I'm going to say
they have been consistently inconsistent.
I'm going to say Leicester are going to Leicester, which is that they're going to have those moments where things, I guess, that went right last season don't go right this season, but they're still going to make things work. So even in this game, you had Like
against Swansea this weekend. Yeah,
Swansea this weekend. Thank you. Like you have Schmeichel get the injury, he's out with a hernia, expected to be back, won't miss any games. But their goal comes about from like the most Leicester work ever, where it's hard work in the middle, win the ball back, quick passing, long ball over the top, Vardy with a smash finish.
I think it's a Drinkwater side foot long ball.
Yeah,
if that makes not like a big long sort of hopeful ball, more like a deep pass into the path of an onrushing Vardy. Yeah.
And so that's where I mean that like after that first game where it seemed like all the stuff, like I think the narrative I saw on Twitter and elsewhere on social media was like, oh, the magic has worn off, that last season they would have finished this opportunity, they would have done this. Yeah. They're going to have to change, they're going to have to tinker. And it seems like we've seen already that there's still that sort of Leicester directness, that root oneness that works for them because they have the faith in each other to know where the other player is going to be and who's going to follow up and who's going to be where.
And the difference is this game against Swansea, they picked basically that famous starting 11 from last season. Obviously, without Conte, they had the new guy, the Ghanaian guy who they signed in January, replaced Conte in the middle. His name is Amati.
Thank you.
But everybody else was the exact same 4-4-2, like Okazaki and Vardy up front in the same midfield and defence. And I feel like it might be that thing of just having to go back to the basic Leicester shape. Yeah. And then do those sort of through balls for Vardy to chase onto.
Yep. And chase onto them he will and finish them he will.
Part of me suspects Vardy's arm is fine now, but he's just wearing that cast because almost like it was good luck last season. Do you know what I'm saying?
Maybe. It might also be that he's had surgery and he's still recovering from it. Yeah, that could also be the case.
That's the more boring, more accurate version.
But then it's like once they scored that goal, you kind of have the faith in them to then be able to just totally play the game they want to play it. They end up winning 2-1. Riyad Mahrez does miss a penalty, so it could have been even worse.
Oh, this is also the game where Wes Morgan loses the ball, then finds it again and scores.
Yeah, and that's
which is maybe a metaphor for Leicester's season so far.
Yeah, but even that, like, that's an example for me of that first game when this child is missed and Vardy scuffs a chance and whiffs a chance, and it's like, oh, they're not going to do it this season. It's just totally different. This Wes Morgan goal is a goal that they would have scored last season, where it's just like, poke, goal. Yeah. Like, it doesn't really know what he's doing, but he knows kick the ball hard and see what happens.
Well, there's also a bit of luck involved, right? Because you really can't find that ball. It's just spinning
in
the
circle.
Taps him on the shoulder. The ball taps him on the shoulder, then lands in front of him. I mean, how much more lucky can you get? I got some other patterns for you. Everton are looking more aggressive under Ronald Koeman. They are defending from the front a bit more, and I think they're up near the top of the table as well. So look out for Everton and Ross Barkley. Okay. Didn't make the England squad, looking really good though.
So defending from the front.
Yeah, as opposed to defending never under Roberto Martinez. Right? Hull City will fight you to the death.
Yep.
Right? They had 2 wins from the first 2 games. They were unlucky not to get a draw out of Manchester United.
Sure.
Right, I mean, 92nd minute?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look at the stats of that game, it's more about...
I'm sure, but they nearly got out there with a point.
They did, yeah.
And no one expected them to be 2 wins and 1 loss.
Very true.
2 games. So, yeah, Hull City will fight you to the death, especially if you talk bad about them on a podcast. Any more patterns, even like overall patterns from the first 3 games that you've noticed from the Premier League?
Well, I don't know. Again, it's tough to say it's a pattern, but it's been up and down as the refereeing. Because in that first game, we saw Mike Dean handing out penalties for tugging of jerseys in the first match day. And now it's kind of been, again, it gets called here, but it's not getting called here, but here it's a warning. So it's definitely a thing that's still being policed, but I think we're already starting to see the reaction to the reaction of everyone saying, we're going to have 5 penalties a game. So now it's like, well, we're still going to call it, we're still going to keep an eye on it, but maybe sometimes we let it go.
It just depends on the referee. I mean, didn't Robert Huth get like double wrestled to the floor?
Yeah, and then the one that got a lot of attention was Jan Vertonghen, I think it was on Matip, just kind of like grabs him and throws him down. And then I guess the argument was that the ball wasn't in play at the time, so the penalty can't be given.
Right.
But then other angles show that he's got the whistle in his mouth as the ball's being kicked. So who knows for sure. But regardless, it still seems like things are kind of up in the air as to how that's going to be policed.
And how about just enjoyment of the games so far? How are you feeling about the Premier League now it's 3 weeks old?
I think it's actually tougher to say than it was last season because everyone looks good.
Yeah.
And so there's no like,
gets me excited.
They're going to be terrible. They look out of it. This team doesn't look up for it. I mean, like at this point last season, like Chelsea were already in trouble. They'd already had the implosion with the
that wasn't fun to watch,
team.
Was it?
No.
Yeah.
And so, but it also makes it easier to get kind of like the ups and downs of the league already.
Right.
This season, I mean, I guess you could Stoke are at the bottom of the table.
Yep.
Stoke aren't going to finish bottom of the table.
I wouldn't
Sunderland are reinforcing. Bournemouth are second bottom. Bournemouth are going to be better. They've just had some tough games. So it's
but
still
how about
tough
the enjoyment
to
of
say.
the games? To me, if you think about Man United flying high and Man City flying high, and then those two, I'm almost going to do the David Mitchell thing, you know what I mean? But those two teams meet, it's a big clash. To me, that's really exciting.
The Titans of Manchester City versus the Giants of Manchester United will meet, making them both seem normal size by comparison. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's that. I mean, that Liverpool-Tottenham game, that was so frenetic, high tempo, but mostly high quality. I mean, that was real Premier League football. I really enjoyed that.
And so I think it's been very enjoyable. And the best way I can explain that is that we said at the start of the season, something has to go wrong. Something there's no way you can't have all these new managers, all these big names, and not have one of these teams kind of implode. I mean,
or even just not make the Premier League, the Champions League.
Yeah,
right?
And even right now we're 3 weeks in, to be fair, but it still just seems nope. Conte's got it working, Mourinho's got it working, Guardiola's got it working. Klopp seems to have things
more
about where they were. Arsenal the same, Tottenham the same. So it's. But
you just named 6 teams, right? And there's only 4 Champions League spots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Hull's in one of those spots right now, I believe.
As are Everton. Yeah.
You're right, sorry, Everton are 4th. But Hull are challenging.
Yeah.
Hull are challenging.
Europa League.
Europa League, yeah. I'm sure they take that, given the way the season started.
Yeah.
Shall we take a 13-hour flight to the West Coast to talk about Portland, Seattle? It was the sort of, it wasn't a 2-legged affair, but Seattle-Portland was last week. Seattle got a big win, and it looked like all the momentum was with Seattle. This time round, Portland hosted and won 4-2, and they really won 4-0 in many ways, because this game was over after Stephen Taylor's header.
And
am I right?
This is my second straight reference to the Richmond Kickers in this episode, but we saw Richmond play Orlando City B for the second time in a week, and we both said in that commentary that it felt like a game when these two teams had already played each other once. Were tired, had traveled, and so they had kind of figured each other out. So both teams did something a little bit differently, but generally speaking, it was very similar.
Yeah.
This Portland-Seattle game,
tight, right?
Yeah. This Portland-Seattle game, not so much.
Well, because there's big differences, right?
Yeah.
And I think we can overanalyze this and find complicated reasons why Portland won 4-2 after losing last week. I think the big reasons are twofold. One, Clint Dempsey is missing.
Yep.
Clint Dempsey had the irregular heartbeat discovered. He's been sort of held out from all soccer. He won't be playing for the US World Cup qualifiers. He was held out for this game. We hope all is good with Clint Dempsey, obviously, because there's more important things in soccer matches. But they miss him a lot, right? For Portland, last week, Caleb Porter made the kind of controversial decision to bench Fanendo Adi.
I'd say controversial. You can just say
especially after what Jack McInerney did afterwards, which was miss some chances, right?
Yeah. And then Adi came in and scored.
Adi came in and scored and really looked the difference in this game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, he scored in that game as a late substitution.
That's true.
And then continued that in this game, scoring the second goal, I believe.
Before we get into the game, I want to talk about the first goal and the way this game was televised. Because here's what happens. Portland score on a corner kick. But ESPN...
Well, Daryl, before you can talk about the corner kick, I want to talk to you about some stuff that's happening off the field. It doesn't really matter, but we will show a montage of things and not allow you to see the build-up to the play.
There was a montage of TIFOs and a long description of the recent sort of TIFO battles between Portland and Seattle. And it got me thinking about, I've heard Portland and Seattle fans being slightly upset about the way that MLS and TV networks have sort of commercialized the rivalry. You know what I mean? And I never really got it until watching this game. Because if you're a Portland or Seattle fan watching this on TV, you don't want to hear about all that. You know all that. If you're an MLS fan, you don't want to hear about that because you know all that. You want to watch the soccer. So when they literally are not televising the soccer or talking about the soccer, only talking about the TIFO, and someone scores and they still haven't got back to the game, that's a problem.
I think it was a problem because it wasn't just your usual, there's a lull in play, let's talk about TIFOs for a second. Because
Powell was steaming down the right.
But that's what I'm saying. But what I'm getting at is that it wasn't just your usual, it's one of our talking points we have in case things are slow. It was a clearly, we are going to cut to you at a certain point. You are going to give us this whole explanation about what's been going on with the TIFOs.
Oh, because it was a package, right, with a load of photographs of last week's TIFOs.
But it, as you said, it was long. I would add a couple more O's to that because there was so much information crammed in there.
It was long with 6 O's.
That it went to the point where, I forget her name, the reporter, but she had to pause for a second as the goal went in and was like, And then they still handed a piece of paper saying never forget.
Yeah, she still had to finish the segment, right? And I feel bad for her because it's obviously very bad timing.
Yeah.
But someone who does the production should realise that you can't do a sort of a minute-long segment in a game, because in soccer, like, anything can happen, right? The ball can just be booted up the field and someone runs through and scores. Especially with Jordan Morris on the field, anything can happen.
Yeah, and I think third reference to when we do our commentary, like, sometimes that happens with me, where I'll start talking about something I've seen, and you'll do a good job being like, hey, hold on one second, because we've got like a breakthrough or breakaway. Like, let's talk about that for a moment.
And actually, what I'll do behind the scenes, I'll just like point at the play so that you can clearly see what's happening.
Well, but I think John Champion, I think that's who was doing the commentary.
It was.
I think he tried to do that at one point. He did do that, like, and then he had to back off and be quiet.
Well, this is the problem with having a sideline reporter, is because you can't like visually communicate, right? Because they don't know what you're gesturing to.
Yeah. And so it's tough to say, like, let's just hold on one moment as this corner kick is being taken and a goal is being scored. Even though it would have been 5 seconds. But regardless, that was definitely a little frustrating to not see what they were doing and how they were setting up.
So should we try and do a better job than ESPN and talk about the goal?
Sure, but I do also want to say that Portland won the Battle of the Tifos, and I'll leave it at that.
Oh, did they have the Ralph Wiggum one?
They sure did.
Yeah.
They sure
Simpsons
did.
Always for the
They also, at the end of the game, Seattle in the last game did the Rickroll.
Yes.
And at the end of this game, the Portland won 4-2. They played Rick Astley over the stadium speakers at the end of the game. So I think Portland wins that battle, and obviously Portland wins the battle for last night's supremacy, at least.
Oh, yeah. So first goal comes in the 16th minute, and it comes from the left-back, who, for short, I call Andrius Kavicius.
Or Vitas.
Or Vitas, yeah. So Vitas header. There is...
That would have been more impressive if you weren't staring at your phone when you said it.
There is a poor attempt. There is a poor attempt to mark him by Fernandez.
Yeah.
Right? So Fernandez is essentially replacing Dempsey in the Seattle lineup. As the ball comes in, Fernandez basically tries to bear hug him and not challenge for the ball. Right? Not only is that sort of something that's possibly a penalty kick, you're also not challenging for the ball. And Vitas is like, all right, you hold on to me. I'm going to jump and head the round thing into the rectangle thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And 1-0 Portland.
And it reminds me of there's a scene in The American Office when Daryl, the warehouse manager, decides that he's going to be way more efficient.
Craig Robinson?
Yep.
He's in Mr. Robot, by the way.
Is he?
That's another reason to watch it.
All
yeah.
right.
Doing dramatic acting.
Well, he... Lovely. Well, this is very dramatic. When he decides to be more efficient, and he basically does all of his talking head segues at once, so they become like, that person has gotten him or herself into a bad situation. And you just said there's a poor attempt to mark him. I think you could apply that to all 4 goals that that Seattle conceded, where each time it felt like there was somebody not being marked, somebody not doing their job, or a couple people not doing their marking jobs. And
in some ways, Fernandez is the least to blame in that that's not his main job, whereas the rest of the goals are kind of Seattle defender faults.
Yeah,
you know
I think so. Or a lack of substitutions, maybe, because Chad Marshall, it looks like maybe strained something. We're not sure what pulls something, defending Fanendo Adi, going in for a slide tackle.
Quite early, right?
Yeah, and then continue to play. And then if you look at, I think it was the third goal, he just can't get across. And then when the ball goes in, he crumbles to the ground.
Yeah,
and stays on the ground. Yeah.
Do you think Chad Marshall got one of those injuries that's like enough to diminish your performance but not enough to get you subbed out of the game?
Yeah, I feel like he got one that maybe it was like a slight strain or just a twist, and so he couldn't move. Like, he wasn't always in discomfort, but he wasn't always comfortable either.
He didn't look mobile, did he?
He did not. It looked like he was maybe increasingly hurting himself the more he played.
Fanendo Adi's a tough opponent.
And he looked pretty mobile, and he looked pretty able to adapt if his goal was any indicator.
So to me, the backbreaker for Seattle was Portland's second goal, which was Adi's goal. And if you look at that Chad Marshall-Adi situation, they were sort of jawing about a challenge that had happened.
Yeah.
And then 10
seconds later... It was the challenge that led to the injury.
Is that right? And then 10 seconds later, Adi has the ball in the net. So I feel like that's where this whole thing falls apart for Seattle. To talk you through it, I remember a long ball from Seattle. Liam Ridgewell, like a hero, bounds forward, leaps what seems like 10 feet in the air, wins the header, sends it back the other way, right? And then there's the fast exchange of passes. It has a Milano step over to leave the ball. Is it Valeri gets the shot away in the end? And then Adi is alive to the chance, right? He sees the future and is there to finish it.
Yep. And then does well to control it, does well to get around the goalkeeper, does well to put it home.
Yeah, he does. Can we also give credit to Chara once again?
Sure.
Because I think he loses the ball, then wins it back in the play just before that.
Does he?
Yeah. A lot of Diego Chara stuff.
He does that pretty consistently, yeah. And then, so it's 4-0 at half. Seattle pulled 2 back. One, a bit fortuitous, is the shot from Ivanchitz that deflects off of Ryan Taylor, who got the 4th goal for Portland.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is
Stephen Taylor.
Excuse me, not Ryan Taylor. Ryan Taylor, Richmond Kickers player. And then the second goal would be Jordan Morris's header, which
You weren't as impressed as me.
Was not as impressed by, no. Mm-mm.
I thought it was kind of just like a good drifting forward run, knowing that Ladero was going to chip it up.
Yeah.
But you seem to think it's just kind of maybe a dumb run that he got lucky with.
Well, it's not such a dumb run. It's the same run that I saw him make last week, where it was like basically once they get in the attacking third, he kind of does this slow drift to the back post.
Yeah.
The difference is that I think at that point maybe Portland had kind of switched off a little bit.
Yeah.
Because no one steps to Ladero, and I think he is that good that if you give him that much time on the ball, he will be able to chip a perfectly weighted pass in. In addition, Liam Ridgewell sort of tries to keep the offside line, but then also drops off like a yard behind everybody else.
We watched this a few times, right? He does the classic thing where you're trying to hold the offside line, which is you put both arms out, right? It's like you're a double toll booth, left and right.
Yeah.
But normally that means no one go beyond my arms. This is the line. So he does that, and then he starts stepping backwards, which is sort of really conflicting messages, right?
Yeah.
It's like saying yes and shaking your head no at the same time.
And so it's a good header from Jordan Morris to finish, because it is that one where it's like he's kind of running and has to do like the backwards jump, turn around, put the power on it. But it's still poor marking to allow Ladero to play that ball, and it's poor marking to keep Morris onside.
Yeah.
So, and it was still the result of that sort of like slow run to the back post, which is the run that I've seen him make time and time again. So it wasn't like a quick darting run that opened up space, or he found space and occupied it. It was sort of like, that's kind of what he does. So overall, not the greatest of nights for Seattle, I would say, and a pretty solid night for Portland.
Well, credit to Portland as well, because after that second goal, it really could. Part of me thought this is going to be a real exciting game, but Portland kind of shut it down again, right? Got back on it. One of the things they were great at doing was using Fanendo Adi as an outlet. So I remember last week with Jack McInerney up top, you couldn't just play that long ball out to his chest or feet or head and have him hold it up or flick it on or whatever. But this time, instead of having to have a slow build-up or anything, they could just go like once long to Adi, then build from there.
Yeah. I mean, and you could see the difference there, where they just looked much more confident. He looked confident on the ball. He looked like he had something to prove.
Yeah, he did, right? There's nothing more dangerous than a striker with something to prove. Yeah. Especially if they're super talented.
Right. Especially if they're big and enjoy a smash.
I think Will Parchman maybe, from Top Drawer Soccer tweeted, how about you just let Adi get to the game however he feels like getting to the game?
I do think, and again, I think it was John Champion when he scored. He said he may not have flown last week, but he's flying tonight. Felt like he had that one written down and chambered and ready to go.
But also because you probably know Adi's going to score.
Yeah.
Which is the glory of Adi, right? So well done to Portland. Yep. They maintain 6th place in the West. Seattle in 8th place, 2 off the playoffs, but we calculated 8 games to go. So Seattle still in good form if you take the last, the Brian Schmetzer reign. If you take that as reign, it's not a Seattle joke. If you take that as a whole, they're still in good form. Still plenty of time to make it above the dotted line. End of the season is going to be exciting to see if they can do it.
Yes, sir.
Can we give a shout out to DC United's Patrick Mullins, scored a hat trick as DC won 6-2. Have you seen this?
I have not.
3 really nice composed finishes. Future US national team player.
Oh, yeah?
I'm saying.
You've decided?
Yeah.
All right.
Not this week, but future in the future.
You never know. Caleb Stanko looks like is going to maybe miss the US national team pool. We'll talk more about that later on, but maybe Mullins gets called in.
All right. One more MLS question.
Sure.
Came from John Scott. I believe he sent this last night or this morning, but it's a good question. You ready, Taylor?
Yep.
With LAFC, the new expansion franchise, the Chivas replacement franchise, right? LAFC recently breaking ground on the new stadium. Who are some big-name players who you would like to see or could potentially find themselves at LAFC as one of the DPs? So if you're unfamiliar, LAFC, they replaced Chivas USA. They're going to be based in Los Angeles. They have the most glamorous ownership group in the history of soccer. Yeah. I want to say there's like Will Ferrell, Mia Hamm.
Nomar is in there, because that's her husband, and Magic Johnson as well in there. Many other, I think Tony Robbins is in there. There's a bunch of random celebs up in there.
Is Tom Cruise in there?
I don't think so.
I feel like he probably is.
I don't think.
No?
I think he is LA Galaxy affiliated because of the
interesting.
Beckham, Will Smith, Tom Cruise connection. They were all buddies according to the Beckham experiment. So I think, maybe he's set his roots in the Galaxy.
Okay. So we could have like a rivalry of Hollywood stars in these two teams.
Clippers and Lakers.
But since LAFC are going to be sort of a starry franchise, right? There's a lot of Will Ferrell wearing the LFC hat. I feel like I've seen that every week for the last year. They're going to enter the league in 2018. They're going to have a big name DP, right? So to answer John's question, we looked ahead and thought, who could it be? The obvious name for 2018 is Cristiano Ronaldo.
This is true.
Because he's 31 right now. He'll be 33 in 2018.
Right. So the wrinkles there would be that, number one, he keeps himself in such a high level of fitness that I think he could continue to play in La Liga for Madrid, or like with another top league, with another top team in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Like, there was a story this week that I forget who the doctor is. It's one of the famous doctors that everyone knows, that he gets requests from Ronaldo to send him new sports science articles whenever he comes across something interesting. So Ronaldo always wants to know the newest thing. So I think he's still going to be in really good shape. That's one thing. To me,
he's never been accused of being overweight or out of shape. Or,
oh, no.
Yeah.
No. The other thing I would say is that if you're looking at potential MLS franchises, if David Beckham is able to get his Miami franchise off the ground, Miami might be just as appealing to Cristiano Ronaldo as LA. Ooh. It's a little bit closer in terms of if you want to fly home, but it's East Coast, it's Florida, it's Miami.
He is more Miami than LA, right?
I think so, yeah. So I think he's still one where, money talks. So it could be him. The one that I think is more likely in terms of current form translating to 2018 form is Wayne Rooney.
Interesting.
Wayne Rooney makes more sense to me as a person he never struck me as a person who really wanted to go to China. He doesn't seem like he wants to expand his horizons and really embrace a totally different culture.
But he could go to another English-speaking country.
This is true. And he did say, to be fair, he did say that his favorite junk food to eat after a game was Chinese food, but I think he meant more so Americanized Chinese food.
Sure, yeah.
So again, LA makes more sense.
Yeah, I don't think he's sampling from the Szechuan region.
Probably not. Not so much.
His brother played for New York Red Bulls. John Rooney, right?
Yeah.
He might get some recommendations.
So then we started looking maybe there's some South American connections. One that came to mind for me was Chicharito, but I think he's still going to be so young and in prime form.
Oh, that could be a good one there.
Yeah, but the one that really stands out in thinking about this is Jamie Vardy.
Jamie Vardy. So Jamie Vardy is now pushing 30?
29.
29, 2 years' time, be 31. I could see him, big payday. LAFC, he'd be the star of the show.
Yeah. And the movie about his life is in the works.
Right. He can executive produce that movie and then score goals for LAFC at the same time.
Yeah. So I think those moves all make sense. Is there anybody we've missed? Can you think of any other
we talked about this off air when the question came in. You talked about maybe a good thing would be an American international.
Yes.
So maybe bringing back DeAndre Yedlin.
Yep.
Maybe bringing back Fabian Johnson.
Bringing Fabian Johnson,
Or bringing Fabian Johnson, just throwing money at US internationals who are playing in Europe.
The thing is, I don't think that there's no Clint Dempsey, Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore playing in Europe right now. I think the biggest name would be maybe Fabian Johnson, maybe John Brooks. I still don't think those are names, even for how good they are, those aren't names that are going to make people be pumped to go see LAFC. Really, the only Americans...
It's got to be a Ronaldo-ish name, right?
Yes, or Pulisic or Julian Green or somebody like that who maybe they have a couple good years and then they jump ship, but I see that as being less likely.
And here's the other thing, this is after the 2018 World Cup, right? So one, US players, their stock will be higher after a World Cup if successful. The downside is LAFC will start play in March 2018. But then the World Cup is in June, July 2018. You could be announcing a signing in January and you don't get them until August, and then they're sort of out of fitness because they just played a World Cup. I imagine if it's Ronaldo or even Rooney, right? You could get them after the tournament and then they have a slow start. It's very frustrating. You really need a player that will join you in March and play from March.
There's a long, proud MLS history of signing players when they're injured.
Yeah.
or when they're still playing for another team.
And then rushing them to play too early because you need them because they're the big name.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So we'll see. We'll see what LAFC do. Maybe they go the smarter route and and sign conventional players and do well in the re-entry draft and in the expansion draft and, go from there.
I actually would like to see them invest in some sort of youth academy. And because, LA Galaxy are doing a great job of finding local talent like Giassi Zardes and, bringing them through the team. Maybe if LAFC are doing it, then you get double the chance. If you're an LA youngster who's great at soccer, you have double the chance of making it into MLS.
The only other thing that would be interesting to see is if they really tried to kickstart that rivalry fast and aggressively pursued an LA player, a Galaxy player. So if they really threw a bunch of money at, say, Giassi Zardes or another like Giovanni Dos Santos, maybe a player who maybe doesn't have I guess Giassi Zardes does, Giovanni Dos Santos less so, doesn't have such a huge connection to LA Galaxy, so you can kind of lure them away for some money and then instantly stoke the flames of that rivalry.
Head coach Landon Donovan.
That would do it.
That would set that whole thing on fire.
Sure would. Ooh, that's an interesting idea.
And he's dabbling in it, right? He did the Chipotle homegrown team for the MLS game.
I'm curious to see what his license is, if he has an A license or a B license.
I'm sure he's got time to get it.
All right, let's get him through there.
Fast track that, Landon Donovan. All right, Taylor, final thing on today's show. The TSS Scouting Network.
Yes, sir. We got some great reports from many different scouts.
Yeah, we do. If you're unfamiliar, Scouting Network is our first and foremost means of supporting the show. It runs on listener contributions, which you can make at totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. And when you do that, we assign you a young player to keep an eye on. We have 4 such reports have come in. Where are we starting, Taylor?
We're going to start with Kyle Staley, who's scouting Ousmane Dembele, the new Borussia Dortmund player. The 19-year-old got his first Bundesliga start on Saturday in a 2-1 victory over Mainz and dominated on the right wing. He also, perhaps more importantly, got his first call-up to France's senior team for their upcoming World Cup qualifiers.
Well, aren't things going well for Ousmane Dembele as he keeps Christian Pulisic on the bench at Dortmund?
He's got 2 years on him. We'll see what happens when Pulisic is 19.
Second scouting report is from Jasper Kosakov. Jasper is scouting Jesse Fleming. Remember Jesse Fleming? Very talented young Canadian midfielder. 17-year-old started every game for Canada, Jasper says, en route to an Olympic bronze medal. She's since settled in at UCLA and scored her first and second college goals against number 6 Florida. As a side note, Mallory Pugh appears to have deferred her UCLA enrollment until 2017. It kind of wouldn't be fair to have Mallory Pugh and Jesse Fleming on the same team.
No, not so much. Not so much. Eric Glassgold writes in regarding Ezequiel Ponce. The 19-year-old Argentine striker has been sent out on loan from Roma to Granada for the 2016 season. He's wearing number 9 and scored in the team's season opener, a 1-1 draw with Villarreal.
Granada in Spain?
I think so.
Speaking of Spain,
yes.
Do you know who's top of La Liga right now?
I do. Las Palmas.
America.
In the sense that they have an American employed somewhere in their ranks.
Yeah. So I think it was on their most recent show. We announced that Ebby, is that his name?
They have Emmanuel Sabi.
Emmanuel Sabi, US youth national. Not playing, but he's on the books at Las Palmas, who are top of La Liga.
Yeah.
Ahead of Barcelona and Real Madrid.
And he is not doing much in terms of helping to be on top of the Liga. But if you watch, there's a great clip doing the rounds on Twitter, I believe, of some of their passing moves. They're very pretty to watch. Las Palmas are a decent squad.
The Leicester City of La Liga?
Could be.
Could it be possible that La Liga said, we need a Leicester City?
We need one too. Let's bring these guys up. Put Kevin Prince Boateng on a team. Let's see what happens.
Is he on that team?
He is. Yes. And it does seem a little bit, with that in mind, as though the American soccer personification is just sort of looking around the professional leagues we've got Mallory Pugh potentially not going to college. We've got Emmanuel Sabi foregoing Akron, I believe, to go to La Liga. It's people are starting to skip that university a little bit.
One more scouting report, Taylor.
Who definitely skipped university.
Yes. So Chris Naples is scouting Gianluigi Donnarumma, the 17-year-old Milan goalkeeper.
I'm going to say the Milan goalkeeper that we both forgot was in the scouting network when we chose we did our 11 draft, our starting 11 draft each. We kind of forgot about him.
Well, news from Chris Naples is that Donnarumma received his first national team call-up, and the inevitable passing of the baton has begun.
Yeah.
This is Buffon to Donnarumma.
I like to think that Italy only appoint goalkeepers who will be around for at least 20 years. That's how it works. Outside of that, you don't get to be in there.
It comes with a 20-year contract.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, those are all the Scouting Network reports for today. One correction from a recent Scouting Network report
is that Taylor isn't good at reading.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who's the Scottish fullback who plays for Celtic?
Oh, Kieran Tierney or Kieran Trippier?
It's Kieran Tierney.
It's Kieran Tierney. Trevor McDonald wrote in his scouting report regarding Kieran Tierney playing for Celtic, and then my brain decided to make it Trippier. So that was not helpful.
So worth noting, not Trevor McDonald's fault.
Yeah.
All Taylor's fault.
Yes.
And apologies to any Spurs fans who may have been confused and thought that Trippier had been loaned and become Scottish all in the same week.
Yeah, and it's actually, I think it's even the first name is spelled differently, even if it's similar. So it's my mistake across the board.
I've got a bonus correction for you as well.
What's that?
Who wrote How Soccer Explains the World?
Franklin Foer.
Franklin Foer,
yes.
Not Simon Cooper.
No.
Simon Cooper wrote or co-wrote Soccernomics.
I blame whoever I was recently having a conversation with about that book. Because I think they said Simon Cooper, and I was like, yeah, he's written a bunch of stuff. Why not? But I think Simon Cooper wrote Soccer by the Numbers. I forget. He definitely wrote the other Soccernomics, so I know that much.
I hope you just didn't add another correction to your correction.
Yeah, why not? Who knows?
All right, that's all for today's show, but it's not all from us for today. Because soon after we publish this show, we will start recording a second Monday show. It's like the Monday/Tuesday show, where we're going to look at Americans in the Bundesliga and Bobby Wood's goal for Hamburg. We're going to look at the US national team roster that Klinsmann has called up, and we're going to look at Sam Allardyce's first England roster or England squad. It's a US roster and an England squad.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, if you've downloaded the show straight away, that show with the rosters and the Bundesliga stuff will be out late Monday night. Keep your ears to it. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, Mr. Grove.
Listeners, thank you for listening. Thank you for the recent iTunes reviews. Thank you to everybody who is sticking with us through this 5 days a week adventure that the Total Soccer Show is on. And we'll talk to you again soon.